Madison County Board of Education meeting for Thursday, March 18th, 2021 is called into session. Mr. Brooks, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's pray. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, Lord, we want to thank you for all the many blessings you've given us. Lord, just watch over us. Lord, be with us as we make decisions tonight. Lord, pray a special blessing on all the board members and the decisions they have to make. I ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
I recommend approval of the agenda dated March 18th, 2021.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of the agenda dated March 18th, 2021. Is there any discussion or changes that need to be made? If there are none, all those in favor say aye.
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 I recommend approval of the minutes dated February 4th, 9th, and 23rd, 2021.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval for the minutes dated February 4th, 9th, and 23rd, 2021. Is there any discussion or changes that need to be made? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 All right, informational items, we have three. Item A, update on summer school 2021. Mr. Solid?
Good evening. Want to give you just a quick update on our summer learning opportunities that we have this summer. Kind of just before we start, just wanted to sort of put you in the right frame of mind of what we're talking to our schools about, but it's really about changing mindsets about what summer school. I don't know if any of us went to summer school or not, but it hasn't always had the most positive connotation to it. But it's kind of like these stairs here. This was a project I think was done in Sweden or whatever, but they have this office building and they have an escalator next to a set of traditional stairs, okay? And you can see everybody chooses the escalator. Well, they paint the stairwells to mimic a piano or piano keys or whatever, and it changes people's mindset. They stop using the escalator and they kind of start using the stairs. Well, before it was painted, everybody knew the stairs were a healthier choice and a better choice, and they probably should take the stairs, but they didn't. So it's kind of what we're trying to do. Instead of talking about summer school, talking about summer learning, it's really making what's good for you irresistible, all right? So people will want to do this rather than be forced to do it. So in rethinking summer learning, it's really a shift from summer school to summer learning. We hope that we can begin to normalize summer learning. I use the example of kindergarten. Kindergarten is not required for any child in the state of Alabama. However, about 90+% of our parents send their kid to kindergarten, all right? We really want summer learning people to start thinking about that it's just another option. It's just another way that we do school. There's no stigmas attached. There's, nothing like that. We've spent a lot of time over the last year looking at the National Summer Learning Association. It's the leading research unit behind summer learning and really trying to figure out what works best. Carl Alexander is one of their leading researchers, and I just put this on here. This was kind of one of those aha moments, but up to 2/3 of ninth grade achievement gap is attributed to elementary summer learning loss. So we see that in all of our test scores. Kids start high. By the time they get to high school, they just, things gradually go downhill. And how much of that can be attributed to what happens to kids from the time school ends till the time school begins in the fall. This gap is just exacerbated for our students that come from our typically lower performing subpopulations, especially those from lower socioeconomic areas. The last part of this, just if we're really serious about closing achievement gaps, we've got to take advantage of this time, especially while we have some funding that can help us do so. So what's our objective? It's really to minimize the effect of summer learning loss based off the best research we can find. What works? First of all, it needs to be voluntary. We want to attract versus require people to attend. And hopefully, we do a good enough job that kids want to be there, that they're not being made to be there. Most parents need a full-day program, and that's something we probably won't be able to do this year, but we are trying to work either, some of our schools have summer daycare, and they'll be able to work to extend their kids all day. We've got 4 of our schools that work with the Heart of the Valley YMCA so that they can create a full-day program, but not every school will be able to do that this year. We need to have at least 3 hours of instruction per day. We'll have 4.5 hours. It should be 20 days is kind of the minimum number we're looking to hit with this. Obviously, we want to keep class sizes manageable. Eliminate barriers, so it's free for every student this summer. We will provide transportation, CNP support, those things. So try to make sure there's not a reason that a kid can't come, all right? We want instruction to be engaging. And thinking about this, kids are VIPs. We want them to feel that way about being asked to attend. So in looking at our 3 different summer learning camps in K-3, obviously the focus of that will be around the Literacy Act, and we'll have room for about 1,400 students. It shows the number of days, number of hours of instruction for all 3 of our programs. There will be nursing support, CNP will be able to support those programs, and we'll have transportation. For grades 4 through 8, we're kind of calling that our Summer Success Summit. Say that 3 times fast. And we've got room for about 1,100 students in that program. And then in our high schools, our focus will be a little more on credit recovery and making sure our kids have if they've missed any credits this year that help get them back on track to graduate, that they'll have an opportunity to do that. And we'll have room for about 900 students in our high school program. So altogether, that's about 3,400 students. About 18% of our student population in Madison County could have an opportunity to attend a summer program. Now, it will be by invitation first, and if those who are invited choose not to attend, then they'll start, kind of going down the line and inviting others. But we really hope that we have a robust program this summer and, that we learn a lot from it. This is just kind of the planning stuff that we work through. This is the thought process and making sure that we've checked all the boxes. So with that, questions about anything that we're doing? Ms. Bates?
I always feel like since you're.
Or are you saying you'd like to go, or?
She needs summer
I
school.
could
needs
use
to
some
go.
remediation.
There you go.
Yes. But first, how
Driver's
much
education.
discipline I'm just kidding. Absences, how will those be handled in this type of a program?
Yeah, so we will, and it probably will be determined a little bit whether it's the 3-5, 4-8, or 9-12, but each kind of grade configuration will have some guidelines. Obviously, this only works if the kid's in attendance, okay? Our mindset going into it is not to look for a way to kick a kid out, but we're also not going to allow somebody that's not showing up to take an opportunity away from someone else. So kind of for each grade band, we'll come up with some, this is sort of the cutoff line. This is voluntary. This isn't required. So if we want them to be there, and if they're not, they will be uninvited, and hopefully somebody who wants to be there can take their place.
Tim, typically how many of our students attend summer school, summer learning in the past?
Yeah, so last summer, fortunately, the pandemic hit right before we had a very well-defined summer learning plan and ready to roll out, and the pandemic hit. And so we had to scramble and change a lot of that to virtual. It still was successful. Our data still showed that kids maintained and even improved some over the summer, but it was significantly less. Where we're planning on 1,400 this year, I think we had around 200 students attend last summer, and it just, I think a lot of it obviously was the timing. For our high schools, where we're planning on we have seats for 900 this year, Sparkman 9 has been our primary summers offering, our summer schools in our district. And I'm thinking they've been around, I'm thinking 150, 200 students roughly in that. That's been about where they've been last few years. So this will be, a significantly greater opportunity, and we're hopeful that we can fill every seat.
What's your determination selection criteria for the children?
Well, again, it kind of depends on the grade configuration. Obviously, if it's in K3, our first group of students that we want to invite to this are kids who have been identified as being consistently deficient in reading. That's by the Alabama Literacy Act. For students that have that designation, summer reading is something that we are required to offer. So we want to make sure that every one of those students, we do everything we can to get those students in there. If there are students that fall in that designation that don't attend, though, we don't want to leave the seat unfilled. There are other students that would benefit from summer learning. In the middle grades, I would say that's probably the one that may depend a little bit school by school, and we're intentionally giving them some freedom in how they develop the program. Some will be more academic-based, looking at kids that were not successful. Some programs may be a little more looking at kids that haven't really solidified a great relationship with school and is looking for an opportunity the school wants to get that kid in this summer, work to, kind of build that rapport with them a little better, and we know that can be a major contributing factor to their academic success. Like I said, the high schools will be largely focused on credit recovery, so kids who have failed courses during the year, but we're also giving them the opportunity to do some just remediation. And I'm not saying every school will do this, but they've got the opportunity to if they've got space and can. If they have students, some of the kids we're most worried about is a kid who makes a D in Algebra 1, and they move on to their next math class, and they're really not, they passed, so they don't have to retake the course, but their preparation is, going to be lacking. We are using some of our ESSER 2 funds to address that. I won't talk about that tonight, but we do have a plan for that if they can't come to summer learning. But that's kind of who the target audiences are for each group.
And is this at every school?
All 28 schools, including our virtual academy, will have opportunity for summer learning.
When will the invite start?
Some already have. Mr. Brooks, the schools, especially for our K3 students, they know who those kids are. I would say at the latest, our next report card or our next grading period, did it end this Friday? This Friday or last Friday? Anyway, it ends soon. So not that it's based on grades, but it's based on the reading data. But a lot of schools we're encouraging them right now, reach out to kids so that parents make plans for them to attend before they schedule vacations and do those sorts of things. We also need to know how many kids are going to attend to make sure that we've got the right number of staff. Obviously, we want staff to be in place if we have the maximum number attend, but that's probably been a challenge this year, especially is one, getting the right people to work. It's been a challenging year. But to have people follow that up and work for a month in the summer too, They're having to think about that a little bit, but we're trying to incentivize them in a way to help them, help them make a good choice and work.
So after the invite, say somebody turns it down, that opens up, say you send out 100 invites and 75, so the next 25, does it go by grades again, or does it go by the school making that determination
The
after that?
school would make the determination, yeah, because
Kind of
really,
putting it in their hands.
I'm sorry.
You're kind of putting it into their hands.
Yeah, I mean, they know the kids. I don't know, it'd be hard to, like the K-3 and the high school are the two easy ones. Those kids are, the kids who we need to invite first, we've got room, we should have room for every one of them if they all wanted to attend. The ones who are required or, need to, we know they all won't. So if they don't, then it really will be a school decision, and I trust them to know their kids well enough to know who would benefit from it the best, so.
One more question. So like, is it going like K through 3, and then the next one's 4 through?
8.
So is it going to be one teacher might be teaching 4th graders and 8th graders, or are you going to have one teacher per age group?
Yeah, and again, probably depends on the school, but we wouldn't want to mix those two age groups together. In the K-3 band, the instruction could be skill-based, so you could have a kindergartner or a first grader in the same room together. We wouldn't have a third, we'd probably keep it banded with grades next to each other rather than across multiple grades. In that 4-8 range, we really are focusing a little bit more on those middle school kids. So that probably is where they're going to start looking for students to attend. But there shouldn't be a situation, they should have plenty of employees to keep, that drastic age difference apart.
Thank you, Tim.
Good?
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Mr.
Tim.
Solly.
Tim?
All right, COVID update. Just briefly, just wanted to touch on a couple of items. I do want to encourage, everyone that when they have an opportunity, if they would just visit our COVID dashboard, you would clearly see that our numbers were trending in the right direction. It has steadily gotten better and better as time has gone on, and I'm really happy about that in terms of quarantines and things of that nature, as well as COVID cases that we actually have within our district. So we're moving in that right direction. It's trending in the right way. So just wanted to make sure that everyone, had an opportunity. It's updated every week on Wednesdays, and it's the information that we have. We update it at that particular time. For instance, 3 o'clock. It's updated real time right then and there, and then the next week we update it once again. Just wanted to make sure that we are, constantly looking at our reopening plan. We are continuing to follow that particular plan. So the things that we do and our focus points and the decisions that we've made come via our reopening plan. And we look at that on a continual basis to make sure that it's in line with guidelines. It's updated based on the guidelines that come down from either CDC or the ADPH, and based on the information that we actually have. In that reopening plan, we have things such as limiting field trips, large groups, limiting the number of large groups, continuing to social distance where we're able, limiting in-person meetings to a minimum, and then maintaining social distancing as we're able to in different settings. One of the key things that I wanted to make sure that we touched on is April the 9th, Governor Ivey has made it known that the mask mandate may not be continued or will not be continued after April the 9th. But we will continue to make sure that we're following our reopening plan, and part of that reopening plan in level 1 requires faculty and staff as well as students to continue to wear masks while they're in our buildings. So we want to make sure that we make sure that that's completely understood, that we will continue the mask requirement within our district. Also, just to kind of touch on next year, we have been, Mr. Sol and his team have done a fantastic job of working through, the summer learning opportunities for our students. And so that's something that has been looked at for a long time, and the same way with looking at next year's offerings. And so for next year, next school year, we will be offering two modes of learning. This year we offered three. We had traditional face-to-face, we had school-based remote or school-based virtual, and then we had our virtual academy, which is a standalone school. For next year, the plan is to have traditional face-to-face learning for students, option, and then to have our virtual academy. So we'll have two options, traditional and virtual academy. Our virtual academy is the Madison County Virtual Academy. It is a standalone school. It's its own call center. You have to register for the virtual academy. We'll have more information that's forthcoming in that respect if individuals, if parents want to take advantage of that. And our virtual academy will actually go from grades 4 through 12. So I wanted to just make sure that we had that information out. Wanted to make sure I shared that with the board. And as well, we should be getting out more information that we'll send out to parents so that they'll actually have it in writing. They'll be able to see exactly what the options are. They'll know exactly what the steps will be as we move into the season of registration. So that's kind of the update that I have. Wanted to just make sure that everyone had that information. Any questions?
I've had a couple of teachers reach out to me in regards to field trips, so make sure I understood you correctly. The field trip posture is not changing at this point.
No, not at this point, not at this time. We're not at a point where we're changing that
Yeah,
posture.
okay, okay. Is there any, I guess that we're looking at the next school year when we'll probably look at the change on that?
We're constantly looking, and of course, we update our reopening plan or make adjustments as additional information comes down to us. But right now, at this particular moment in time, we're kind of sticking with where we are. And then, as the year moves on, or as this new year comes or the summer comes, we'll look at making adjustments where we need to make adjustments based on information that we receive. But as of right now, we have not changed our posture when it comes down to field trips.
Okay, okay. Yeah, the argument, and I understand it to a degree, is that we allow competition-based field trips currently. But academic field trips, we are not permitting. And assuming the reason being you can control the environment in the competition-based versus the academic, we don't. I guess I wonder if the academic piece has been controlled from the other side. If the COVID protocols have been met, is there any consideration for us to reconsider?
Well, when you look at the competition-based,
Right.
so there are a lot of competition-based activities that, one, they are governed by a governing board, a governing body that outlines and dictates exactly how things and protocols are actually set up and are in place. Also with that, you're looking at activities that cannot be pushed off until next year because they build on one another, like band. Band, you have to continue to do certain things with band because kids are learning. The competitions require, certain things to take place. And so even with our athletic programs, there are athletic-based progressive competition that leads to a definite end. In some of the academic field trips, those are things that can be gotten, not necessarily by physically being at that particular place, but there are other options that are available. And then too, they are more loosely governed than some of the other activities that's based by governing boards or actual institutions that's running those particular activities. So there's a difference in, in doing, in those two areas. With some of the academic areas, there are ways to be able to get that same type of learning in an alternate setting that some of the others you can't do it in.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that explanation.
Is that just for this year, or are we talking about next year too?
We're just looking at this year.
Okay, just look at this year.
Either, Alan, either you or Ms. Bates, as our resident medical professional on the board, could answer this question. Is Madison County Health Department going to continue the mask mandate past April 9th? Or what do we know as far as, I know for the mask mandate for Madison County came out prior to Governor Ivey's mandate coming out in July. And so I just didn't know if anyone knew if the mask mandate set by the county is going to remain in effect.
I don't know about the county as a whole. I can tell you that the majority of hospitals and doctors' offices will remain
Sure.
masked. So, but I can't tell you, I have no knowledge of any indication from the health department.
Right.
Or the state health officer, what he will suggest.
Okay.
I would imagine that the Madison County Health Department will have to follow whatever the state.
Yeah.
I would too, but if memory serves, Madison County established a mask mandate prior to the state
You
doing
can
it.
go above, but you can't go, yes, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yes.
I'm curious as to whether or not the county health department is going to continue. I don't know. That's because I always assumed that partly assumed that our reopening plan was based not only on Madison County Health Department, but on the state's guidelines. So if the state goes zero and the Madison County goes zero, is there room to at least re-examine some of that?
Well, our guidelines, we pull our guidelines from they're part of CDC guidelines, they're part of the ADPH guidelines, they're part of the State Department of Education guidelines. And then there's also, part of looking at, high congregant areas and being in close proximity, and then the opportunity of spread within our district. And so with that, we have to kind of make a decision based on the environment that we are actually functioning in to make a determination. And we have the flexibility of going above or strengthening those guidelines in order to meet the needs of safety within our district, and that's
I'm fine with it. And the reason I asked is because I think it was either Coleman County or Coleman City. I can't remember, but there are a few, and Coleman County sticks in my head is one of the systems locally that is going to go maskless in their schools effective 9 April, and I didn't, and that's why I asked the question about Madison County Health Department, whether or not they are Madison County Health.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but much to Mr. Perkins' point, if Madison County did, they would be making that in some ways based on the fact that in public places,
Yeah.
where you have the ability to eliminate close contact or at least less than 15 minutes of contact. In a grocery store, I may have to get past you.
Correct.
But I don't have to stand with you
next to
for
me.
15 minutes. And so they're really talking about those areas where behavior can be adjusted in order to still maintain that 6 feet or that 15 or 5 minutes, whatever they decide it is. And it's also not a place you are required to be.
Right.
Whereas in the schools, it is basically in the end, it's somewhat federally governed. And I'm sorry, I feel like I always turn my back to you, Brian.
That's okay.
But we don't require children to be there because they can be remote, but those that are there are required to stay in that classroom without the capacity to be able to move greater. They may be able to get 6 feet, but not for 15 minutes, that sort of thing. So I think when you're talking about a county-wide thing, you are discussing more of your public areas where people have the ability to adjust their behavior accordingly if they are uncomfortable in that situation, which I don't think our students have the ability to do.
Right.
And I think until we are able, and depending on how you feel about vaccines, to offer that to every person, then the choice becomes that person's choice, whether they or their children get that. But right now, because that a choice is not available to every citizen, I don't think that we can give our children the ability to let children decide whether or not they want to keep themselves safe. We should have to kind of make that umbrella
That's fine.
because of their age.
That's
And-
fine.
and the
I just
recommendation-
asked because,
Yeah, and the recommendation is still, it's, the recommendation from the ADPH, the recommendation in CDC is still to wear mask, even though it may be lifted in some areas, the recommendation still is a mask, is to wear a mask.
okay. All right. Next.
All right. Informational item C, discussion on IT certification. Mr. Malone?
Good evening. Just want to take just a couple of minutes and talk with you about the Information Technology Director position. As you well know, we've been on the search for an IT director and talked with several of you throughout the process. So want to talk to you about an idea or proposal that we've come up with. So I'll start with just showing the salary that our current salary schedule has for the IT director. And I know it's kind of hard to see. It goes out 10 steps, and it starts with $85,000 on step 0 to step 10, $95,000. So basically $85,000 to $95,000. And as you all well know, there's been several conversations, even in board meetings, about, the fact that an IT director, if you go out to the business sector or any other sector, it typically, the salary is much higher than that. So now, obviously, it's hard for us to compete with the business sector. I'm aware of that. So we wanted to try to at least be more competitive within our neighboring school systems. So I pulled up the salary for the Huntsville City and Madison City, our neighboring school systems. And as you can see, we have 10 steps. Madison City, 15 steps, and Huntsville City, 18 steps, and not necessarily about the steps, but where we start and where we end. So basically, Madison City starts at, and I know that's hard to see, but I think that says 86 to 104?
89.
89.
89, okay, to 104. Huntsville City starts at 79 to 126, okay? So you can tell, as far as on top end, for sure, the other two systems pay quite a bit more than we do. Also, I've got a little note at the bottom. Madison City adds a supplement for theirs. If you have your EDS, $27.71, and if you have a doctorate, it's $4,434. Another thing to note, too, Madison City actually has 2 technology coordinators. They have one that's just for the network, and then they have one that's for more of the instruction side of the instruction technology, which, as you know, we've had a lot of discussions about this. The ideal candidate for this position, because there's a lot that this position entails. You need to be IT-minded, network-minded. Obviously, it's an IT position, but it's for a school system. So you also have to be school-minded and managerial-minded as well. So there is a lot.
Can I ask a question while we're still on salary before you go to your next?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if any of the other systems, or does our salary include being able to count non-school IT experience in hitting a step? I know there are some parts in the salary schedule where if your experience wasn't gained in a school, then you still start on step 0, whereas are we counting outside experience in any of these systems? Okay. Okay,
Yeah. Okay,
thank you. Sorry.
that's okay.
Good.
Okay, so one of the things that we talked about to maybe make this a little more enticing and add something for the employee, we looked at maybe incentivizing them, giving them a supplement for certificates obtained. In the IT world, a lot of times with teachers or in the education world, it seems to be more degree-based. In the IT world, it seems to be more certificate-based. So we talked and talked to Mr. Curry about this quite a bit, or several times, about what kind of certificates would make a candidate or make an employee valuable in this position. So these are 3 that we have come up with. Now, so I'll talk about on the next slide. These or something comparable, but basically these are 3 of some that we've come up with and time frames to obtain these. superintendent's ed tech leadership. Basically, that's kind of I guess I'd say a general certificate that is ideal for someone leading an IT department of a school system. So that one's kind of general, and also the project management certificate is kind of general as well. The CompTIA, the one that's in the middle, that's Security Plus. CompTIA has several certificates. That's the reason we decided, well, if it's this or something equivalent. For example, they have Security Plus. They also have Networking Plus and several other ones too. So if it's something that we felt was equivalent. So all I have on this slide is the certificates we were discussing and also the time frame to obtain those certificates. A rough estimate on those. So, what would we propose that the supplement would be if the employee had all three of these certificates? Then we were proposing a $10,000 supplement to their salary. Yes, ma'am.
The employee incurs the cost of obtaining the
Yes, ma'am.
certificate?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to pay to get somebody else certified to go somewhere else, sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, but those certificates, most of them have to be renewed about every 3 to 5 years.
At least two of the three have to be renewed. the
CompTIA
project
and
management
Security Plus.
CompTIA, yeah.
Every 3, is that what you said? Yeah, I found 3 years seemed to be the most common. So if that were the case, then if they actually had the 10,000, if they had the 3 certificates and obtained the $10,000, I just kind of put it back in the little chart there and would tell you, it puts us more in line with the other school systems, specifically Madison City. On top end, ours would be 105 and theirs is 104. So it does put us in line a little bit more. So again, I have the kind of the summary of it at the bottom. Those 3 certificates, once they obtained all 3 certificates, they'd be eligible for the $10,000 supplement. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Feeling very inquisitive this evening. So these 3 certificates that we're talking about right now, what happens in 4, because I know IT moves pretty fast, what happens in 3 years when these aren't the certificates to have anymore? Do we need a way to keep track of what the current certificate should look like?
Yes, we would, and I think I said it, but I didn't necessarily point to it. That bottom sentence says, if employee holds all 3 certificates or equivalent. So to cover a situation like that, if that one's not the current certificate or something that they would need, but
And
whatever
would
comes in its place.
Would the board
Yes.
decide whether that was equivalent, or would the direct supervisor of this person decide whether that's equivalent?
Did you say would the board or that person? I didn't hear
Yeah,
you.
would that be something we would have to decide, or would someone like yourself make that decision on whether or not that was an equivalent?
I mean, I think it could probably be a discussion, it may be a mutual agreement, I'm not sure. I mean,
So generally, personnel looks at certifications and those type of things. So personnel would actually work through the processes of looking at certifications and making sure that they are actually equivalent or where it needs to be.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
no, that's fine. Any other questions?
I know we can bring somebody on as a step 3 with relevant experience. Are we looking for relevant experience within a school system? In other words, if somebody comes to us with 8 to 10 years of IT experience, but 0 in an educational realm, but obtains the certification or had the certification, would we go ahead and start them at a step 3 because they had so much experience? Or would they start at step 0?
Yes, sir, I believe that would be the case. Mr. Kubik may want to, we actually had this discussion the other day. I think
I think we would.
I would think we would, but I'm just,
Mr. Weiss, the way it works is this way. If someone brings outside experience, the max they would come into our district would be a step 3.
Okay.
So that means 3 or more years, they would come in as a 3. If they come in from experience from the exact same position in another school system, then it can go year to year up to the 10. So, like, let's say it was a director of IT for, Huntsville City, and they wanted to come over to Madison County, and they've been there for 7 years, they could come in as a step 7.
got it, okay.
As long as it's a school system, public school system in Alabama, it's year for year, otherwise 3 would be the max up to 3.
And is that something that's going to go into that's in the announcement that people are aware of that? So when they read the announcement, if they're an IT guy at some other school system here locally or out of state, they see our announcement and they go, oh, I have an opportunity here and I might look at it. Is that something that they can see on the application, on the announcement?
That they can start at that salary?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Well, that they would know, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that that's on there. I don't think it is, actually. But I bet,
It is not, what it says is that it's according to the Madison County Board of Education salaries schedule and guidance, so it's established that way.
Okay,
It doesn't specifically say what experience we would give credit for or not.
I got you, okay.
And generally, individuals who are applying for a certain position, they kind of go to the salary schedule and kind of check, and this information will actually be outlined in our salary schedule.
So y'all were proposing the 10,000 to be added to the salary on the step 0, given that they get the 3 certifications within the allotted time.
well, yes, sir. Whatever step they are currently
Say
at,
0.
it would go to that. Yeah, if they're at step 0,
So if they come in making 95,280, step 0, and they don't get the certificates, do they get a $10,000 pay cut?
if they don't have the certificates, they're not eligible for the supplement.
Yeah,
Okay, so the supplement, so they hire in at 85, and then it goes up by 10,000 when they obtain the 3.
Exactly, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So is the goal that they have to have all 3 earn the 10,000?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like,
For supplements, we have it in place where it says that you must maintain that certification. So if they, like for our national board certified teachers, if they don't maintain that certification, then they lose that additional supplement. So that would go in place along with this, that it would be maintained at those certifications unless, the certifications change.
and ideally, they would already have the certifications prior to applying for the position.
Yes, sir.
They're not easy certifications to obtain. Not something like you can apply and get the job and say, well, I'll go ahead and get the certifications. I mean, there's quite a bit of studying and work that needs to be done to obtain those certificates.
Right.
Yeah, I think this helps
Yeah,
our district.
I agree.
We're deficient as far as salary is concerned for our technology director. And to give some method of enhanced salary through certification is a solid move for us.
Agree.
I think, of course, those certifications, Mr. Malone and I talked about them. There's others, there's equivalents. I'm glad we got the equivalent there. There might be some that are even better than what we see here. There's some additional security certifications, some additional project management certifications that even rise higher than those levels. So those equivalents will help because you may have somebody come in with even more certifications than what we have listed, so.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Long.
Thank you.
Administrative items. Item A, I recommend.
Ellen, before you go on,
All right.
really quick,
Go ahead.
I've been meaning to do this repeatedly in the years that I've been president. I haven't done it, and I had a constituent email me. This gentleman had never watched a board meeting before in his life, so he was confused as to how we could, in his words, race through the administrative items without any kind of review or discussion. So I wanted to make sure I do a public service announcement out here, and then people can understand. We as a board are given a very large packet of information throughout the course of the 2 weeks between board meetings, and have the opportunity and the expectation to review the information, ask questions, get a hold of the specific directors or the superintendent or the chief of staff or whomever and discuss it. And I have no doubt that all of us do that on a regular and continuing basis. We're all professionals and we understand what's at stake and what we're doing here. So I just wanted to put that out there to the public, that when we go through the administrative items, it may appear that we're going through them relatively quickly, and we are. There's no question about that. And some items we can't have discussion on, particularly when it pertains to personnel items. But again, we do have the opportunity and the expectation to review question and research the information that's being provided to us. And the president, myself, and the vice president, Mr. Curry, we have a meeting prior to each board meeting to go over the agenda and to discuss the items as well. So I just wanted to put that out there. I've been meaning to do that, kind of forget, but this gentleman had sent me this email, and I thought, well, I'll go ahead and use that opportunity to impress upon everybody that we do our due diligence and we do our research. So go ahead, Alan. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
And just to touch on that, most of this information is presented the board meeting prior
Yes.
to actually, so we've
Yeah.
the board has had an opportunity to ask questions and talk through these items at the previous board meeting, and then we vote on them
Correct.
afterwards. And we're
Correct.
constantly having conversations about it. I talk to board members all the time, and so does the rest of the staff, so just wanted to throw that in.
No, you're right.
All right, administrative items. I recommend approval of the January and February 2021 financials and payments of bills as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a recommendation for the approval of the January and February 2021 financial statements and payment of bills as submitted. Any discussion? Any questions? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item B, I recommend approval of the resolution for the 2021 amendment of 2013 lease purchase agreement as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the resolution for the 2021 amendment of the 2013 lease purchase agreement. If there's any discussion, we have the two gentlemen here that were here this evening. We have Ms. O'Bannon who can explain a little bit what this is, and I have the resolution here. If anyone would like to, Karen, would you like to maybe say a few words here?
Just a brief, actually what we're doing is just refinancing from a high to low interest rate. Just quickly, what the resolution does at this point, if you mind. The financing agreement we're referring to,
Yeah.
the Snyder project. The capital lease we're referring to is the Snyder project.
Good evening. In 2013, you entered into a lease purchase agreement to finance certain energy-efficient equipment. Now, that was in 13, so now we are trying to refinance that to lower the interest rate. That interest rate at that time was 4.49, and we're reducing it to 2.90. The final maturity is not to be extended. So this will provide you savings of over $40,000 a year for a total of a little over $600,000. That in effect is really what we're doing, amending those outstanding documents. If anybody has any further questions, I'm happy to go into it or address any questions you may have.
I think each board member got a copy of the resolution too, so that they can look at that as well. And Mr. Perkins and I already have signed the resolution, but it does need board approval, and that's why it's on the agenda for this evening. So, thank you, Tom. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
If there's no additional questions or comments, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item C, I recommend approval of the bids renewals as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation and approval of bid renewals.
I have a question about the bids. Not every single one of them, but just like one of the companies that we do business with, like just say one for tires. If we don't use that much, are we buying that many up front, or what are we doing? Or I guess what I'm saying, like for 250 tires, we get a price. So if we need another tire after the 250, does it stay the same? Does it go up?
It stays the same.
So,
That's just an estimate.
okay.
And we might not.
So we might not even use that amount.
We just use the pricing.
So we don't, the amount that's on there, that's just a bid. We don't actually, that's not what the company's actually getting.
Well, that is what we get, but I mean, if we needed more than that,
What if we need
it's the
less?
same pricing.
What if we need less than that, though?
It depends on what it is. Yeah, if we needed less, it would still be the same pricing. But we never, we always order that and more.
All right.
Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just saying, if we need, I know we will use it all, but if we use less, we still owe them the money, no matter what.
No, sir. It's per, it is per item, price per item. That's the way to summarize it on your bid sheet.
Okay.
To know who's the low bidder. Everybody bids on that volume.
I think it's a bid for up to 250 tires, but if we don't buy 250 tires, we're only paying for what we purchase, so if we
That's
only
what I was asking, like,
Yeah.
if we buy 240, we pay for 240.
That's correct.
Don't pay for 250.
But we're authorizing Karen and the financial department to purchase up to 250 tires based on this bid. If we don't purchase all 250, it's,
And more.
yeah, and more as necessary.
They renewed up to 5
Yeah.
years.
And that total price is based on a price of the tires itself. So if it's more, then we pay that same price. If it's less, we still pay that same price.
That's what I was saying. I didn't know after the 250 if there was a different price. So it's, everything stays the same.
Yep. Good question, though. Good question. Thank you. Any additional questions on bids? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item D, I recommend approval of the ESEA prohibition on aiding and abetting sexual abuse policy 5.18
Motion.
as submitted.
Oh, sorry.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of ESEA prohibition on aiding and abetting sexual abuse policy 5.18. Is there any discussion? I don't know if we can go into discussion on that. Okay. Is there any discussion on that? Ken's online too, if there's any questions for Ken. ESSA? Okay,
Yes, ESSA.
okay. Yeah. Correct, correct. If there are no other questions or comments, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item E, I recommend approval of the policy 6.10 anti-harassment and anti-bullying as submitted.
Motion.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the policy 6.10, anti-harassment, anti-bullying. Any questions on this recommendation? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item F, I recommend approval of the 2021-2022 Code of Conduct as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the 2021-2022 Code of Conduct as submitted. Any questions? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item G, I recommend approval of the COVID work schedule continuation as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the COVID work schedule continuation as submitted. Any questions of this? This will go out to what date?
End of the school year.
End of the school year? Okay, I didn't.
We had it up to March the
26th.
26th and want to extend it out.
Okay. Any additional questions or comments? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item H, I recommend approval of the contracts for services as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a recommendation for approval of contracts for services as submitted. Any discussion? If there is none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item I, I recommend approval of the following personnel items and addendum as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of the following personnel items and addendum as submitted. Any questions? If there are no questions, all those in favor, say aye.
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 I do want to just take an opportunity to congratulate Tracy Ray on being the new virtual academy principal, as well as Trey Dyer, who is the new director of transportation.
Congratulations to both of them.
All right. Item J, I recommend approval of the principal contracts for Catherine Rogers, Jennifer Witt, Jeremy Lowry, and Jennifer Fanning as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a recommendation of approval of the principal contracts for Catherine Rogers, Jennifer Witt, Jeremy Lowry, and Jennifer Fanning. Any questions or discussion? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Item K, I recommend approval of the supplemental contract and the discontinued contract as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation of approval of supplemental contracts and discontinued contracts as submitted. Any questions or discussion? If there are none, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right. We have reached the end of our agenda for this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. I think our next meeting is, what,
Let's see.
should be after Easter, right? April 8th, it is after Easter? Okay. Yeah, after Easter, okay. Just for the board's knowledge, I have requested, I've not heard back officially, but I have requested to address the State Board of Education on the 8th of April in Montgomery regarding the State Board of Education's potential for mandating every high school senior starting in 2021 to fill out and complete the free application for financial student aid, or the FAFSA form. I think there's two of us on the board that have already done that, at least have children in college or have gone through college. Neither one of us did fill that out, and there's a lot of controversy as to why you should, and I'm not going to get into it now, but just wanted to let the board members know that I have asked and requested to attend that board meeting to address the board on that application. So I should be back in time. If not, Nathan, you're up.
All right, I got you.
Any other comments for the board? All right. I will enter a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second? What do I need to do?
No, just motion. I need a second. I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those, any discussion, anything else for the good? If there is none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Good night.